let's face it, Taylor Swift is not just an American icon, she's a worldwide icon. She's been great for the game because she brings in the whole fan base of people that probably wouldn't have watched, and now they see what the game is.
I'm excited to talk with you today, of course, all things football, but I want to start off with your book. So tell us a little bit about the new book and also what prompted you to want to write it.
Well, the new book was started really when I was a young coach, a young scouting assistant for the 49ers. I would get on the team bus. I had to sit behind Coach Walsh, and he would always be doodling Clark Shaughnessy plays. And I had no idea who Clark Shaughnessy was, what he did, but Walsh was obsessed with him. And that kind of got me involved into the history of the game. And then growing up here in New Jersey, watching Monday Night Football, trying to watch the halftime highlights, all those things kind of compounded. And then when I got into the league and was in player personnel for so long, I felt like there were a lot of players that weren't getting their due. And I just felt like I needed, for my own sanity, to write a book from football from my viewpoint, how I saw the game when I thought of it, and try to help some of the players that I think have been overlooked through time and honor some of the coaches that have been overlooked. For example, this past weekend, we saw the Lions fans all fill up the Ford Field. We never talked about the great Buddy Parker, who invented the nickel defense, who invented 2-minute offense and 2-minute defense. And if you went to Alabama practice, the star position, which is the slot corner and nickel, was invented by Buddy Parker. And yet nobody mentioned the history, and the reason all those people were sitting there is because the Lions were once a great team, that the Lions were so good that Al Davis, as a young person watching football, wanted to copy a uniform that matched the silver from the Lions and the black from the Army Knights. And I feel like that needs to be talked about if we don't do that in the NFL.
I love that. And I feel like it kind of leads in perfectly to what I'm about to ask you. You link a lot of football history to the game today, so I would love to dive into that a little bit more. Do you feel like today's NFL fans require much more gratification than it did decades ago? And then also, two-parter to that, how do you think that affects like star rookies nowadays?
Well, I think a lot of the rookies come in the league and they think the league started with them. They didn't realize the heritage that went before them, the people that have paved the way for this game to become what it is. And the way the offenses have evolved, the defenses have evolved. They've been through the work and the efforts of coaches and players before them. And so as the game has become more complex, this game started out, early and it started out as a brute force game. And then it became, a little bit wider open, and they changed the football, and then they kind of allowed more of the rules to change. And all of a sudden, it was about who had the best players, and the coaches didn't matter as much. But today it's about chess on grass. And that's the appeal, why it's so popular. That's why 50-some million people watch the conference championship game. 63 million watch Baltimore play Kansas City. That's why it's so popular, because it's chess on grass. It combines everything we love: intelligence, strategy, and brute force. And so I think the younger players have to understand the evolution of the game and how they are. And, when Jalen Hurts is running out of a one back, out of a single wing look, he's doing things that they did 30 years ago.
Yeah. And when we see these teams lose tough games or even get knocked out of the playoffs, it seems to really affect fans. Maybe they're just being dramatic on social media, but do you think that NFL fandom has become more intense than it was before?
Oh, without a doubt. You know why? I mean, because people are betting dollars on it. People are betting $5 on it. When you've got an investment, whether it's $5 or $50 or $500, you're more involved, right? And I think we've seen the evolution of the game too, right? Fantasy football put a lot of people more involved in the game. And now we've got betting involved in most states, right? All over the country. I work for Visa, a betting network. And I hear about it every day. We talk about betting on my show. And so I think that will add another layer to the whole intensity of the fans. And look, it's part of it. I think there was a time when college football was so popular in the country. It was more popular than the NFL because you had your loyalty to your school, your letter jacket. You went there. There was great pride in that. And that pride has kind of transformed into this fandom that are these cities now have. We saw it in Detroit. It's remarkable. I mean, 30,000 people went to Ford Field to pay $20 a beer to watch a game they could have
Crazy.
sat on TV and watched it home. But they wanted to be around people that were similar to who they were, and they wanted to feel that.
Could you talk a little bit about the new elements to the game? Of course, we can't ignore the fact the Taylor Swift effect that she's having on the league right now, and the hype around Travis and Taylor when it does eventually die down. What do you think the NFL can do to keep reaching a newer, younger fan base?
Well, I think she's been great for the game because she brings in the whole fan base of people that probably wouldn't have watched, and now they see what the game is. And I think it's really helped on a European level, on a global level, because let's face it, Taylor Swift is not just an American icon; she's a worldwide icon. And so there's other people, and we're going to eventually see teams in Europe and all over. And I think that's going to be the growth of the league, and it's good for the players, right?
Right.
The players share in the revenue. And so as this league expands and we go into Germany or England, or even if they put a team over in the Far East or Australia, I mean, I spent 2 weeks on a consulting thing for the AFL Football League down there, the Australian Rules Football. They love American football, and they have to watch it at 6 a.m, Monday morning. They love it, so there's great, it's going to continue to grow and grow. The betting helps it grow. The icons like Swift helps it grow too.
We're going to be on Radio Row next week. Definitely going to ask this question to current and former athletes. But do you think Mahomes and Andy Reid can ever match the Super Bowl success that Belichick and Brady had? And do you think they might even surpass them as all-time greatest quarterback and head coach in the NFL? Or is that too far down the line, you think?
Well, I think they're on their pathway, right? I think they're going to have to, this is probably one of the worst offensive teams Patrick has taken to a Super Bowl. They've always been an offensive team that had to cover up for their defense. This is a team that, as you looked at what they've done, they've averaged 23 points the last 4 games of the year, the Cincinnati game and the 3 playoff games. And their defense has only given up 14. So, yeah, I do think they're on a trajectory to get there. The cap plays a huge part of this. That's what makes the Patriots' success so unique is they did it during the cap era. And Brady was willing to take less to help the team out. And I think that if the Chiefs do continue down that road, they're going to lose Chris Jones. They're going to lose one of their best players. You got to draft really well. You got to replace the older players with cheaper, better talent. But as long as you have Mahomes and you have Reid's creativity, you're always going to be in the game.
Yeah. As you know, the Chiefs are going up against the Niners in Super Bowl 58. And of course, I'm personally a big fan of Brock Purdy, their quarterback. Obviously, he doesn't play like Patrick Mahomes on the field, but here he is in the Super Bowl. So would you say that Brock Purdy is the greatest scouting job of all time, or do you think there's a level of luck there when Mr. Irrelevant becomes a Super Bowl level quarterback?
I think we got to stop this trash and Brock Purdy crap. I really do. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, everybody in America loves a success story. I don't know why we don't love Brock Purdy. I don't know why we haven't embraced Brock Purdy. It's ridiculous. Kurt Warner, when he went to his Super Bowl in '99, nobody could stop talking about how he was in a grocery store, stocking shelves, how he went to Green Bay and he wouldn't even throw a pass. And, he was number 2. He was a college. He probably got signed by the Packers. This kid comes in. He's Mr. Irrelevant. He starts 4 years in college. Plays well. Nobody thought he had a strong enough arm. Nobody thought he was big enough. They took a chance on him, and he beat out the guy that they gave all the draft picks to.
Right.
So, I don't understand it. I don't know what more he has to do to prove that he's a good player. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's a horrendous narrative that's out there, and I think a lot of it comes from the fact that a lot of people wanted Lance to be the starter because they gave up so much for him. And Purdy gets blamed for everything, and it's unfair.
One final question for you. Going off all of this, as someone who's evaluated talent for a very long time, I would love to get your take on Caleb Williams. I know there's no doubt he's an incredibly special guy on the field, but one supposed former scout from the Jets took a huge shot at Caleb recently. I don't know if you saw that, calling into question the problematic string of antics we've seen from him off the field. So could you kind of just walk us through how you would go about evaluating everything surrounding Caleb, and if you'd even spend the first overall pick on him?
Well, I think the first thing you do in scouting is never begin with the end in mind. So whoever said that, ignore it. Because if you take that into your consideration, you immediately put bias into your decision making. And then you start collecting data to support a theory that may not be accurate. So my whole process with Caleb Williams is to really study him on tape, watch him, and then talk to people around him that have really no vested interest in how he behaves or what he does. The best way to learn about somebody is to watch him in a setting where they don't think they're being watched, And so I think that's what you have to do. And look, if you're going to draft him and make him the face of your franchise, you got to make sure he can handle it. A, B, you got to make sure his character can handle it. That's important because you want your best player to be the hardest worker. You want your best player to be the most dedicated worker. So that would be the process that I would reach for. And I don't have any conclusions yet because it's yet to be determined. You're collecting data to then make a decision, not making a decision to collect data.
Hey, sports fans, if you want to see more conversations with athletes and stars, check out these videos right here and be sure to subscribe for more from USA Today Sports.